You are no longer a seeker. You may have identified as a seeker in the past. I know I did. I was definitely that person who insatiably sought out and took in so much from so many different wisdom traditions and healing lineages and spiritual teachers. And all of that was really beneficial for me at that time, as I'm sure that all of your seeking has been beneficial for you on your path. But you can feel that something is shifting for you as it relates to this. You're noticing that you feel less of a compulsion toward seeking out teachers, less of a compulsion toward looking for the next book or podcast or workshop or certification. And that might feel a little confusing to you, but this is happening because you're in a liminal space. You're in a space of transition from the identity of the spiritual seeker to the embodiment of the wisdom that you are. One of the ways that you'll know that this message is for you is that you've been having the experience lately over and over of feeling something in your own body, receiving something from your own intuitive guidance directly in moments when you're not looking for it, but it just comes to you. And then immediately or soon after, you encounter someone giving language or context or a framework for the exact understanding that you have already just received in your own body. Another way that you can know that this message is for you is that you've noticed that some of the core teachers or practitioners that you felt really drawn to at one time, that you felt really connected to, and I'm going to say this and it might sound a little harsh, but please just receive it if it resonates and leave it if it doesn't. But some of those teachers that you might have been a bit addicted to in the past. You know, I think especially in this age of spiritual and healing and liberation content creation, we are primed for overconsumption. We're primed for over-identification with the people we see on our screens, the people speaking to us through these technologies that are literally engineered by corporations with the goal of keeping us hooked. And some of these content creators, knowingly and unknowingly, they are making content specifically to keep you addicted. So I name this dynamic hopefully in a way that does not lead you to feel any shame if you recognize yourself in this, but more so just to understand how all of us have been primed and conditioned to fall into this dynamic. But true teachers on this path are the ones who remind you of what you already know in your body. The ones who are here to support you in trusting your own knowing. True teachers on this path are the ones who remind you that the measure of what they're here to do is that at a certain point, you no longer need them. You no longer resonate with them because you've moved on. You've incorporated and integrated those lessons, and now you're somewhere else. You're exploring new terrain. And you may have noticed this, that lately you don't feel drawn to the teachers or practitioners that you used to be drawn to. And that's also a sign that you're in this phase of transition. And it might feel a little scary to notice that you're no longer seeking in the same way. it might feel a little empty in this moment, like a little bit of a void. And when you go back and try to engage with some of those old teachings and old practices, they might not hit the same anymore. But I invite you to trust that emptiness. You can offer deep gratitude to the teachers and the spaces that once were home for you, and you can allow yourself to release them. You're in a new phase of holding a both and energy. There's the part of you that's open to receiving wisdom and guidance from new sources, and there's the part of you that knows that you are here to share your wisdom and guidance, and the space in between is your open, receptive channel. The space in between is your self-trust. I'll be honest and say that there is something a little trippy about knowing that I'm called to share the wisdom that moves through me, through this oracular guidance that I receive through my channeling, through these messages that Spirit calls me to share with you, to know that all of that is true. And to also know that at the same time, you don't need me. You don't need this video. Because if you are resonating with the messages that I share, you already know everything that I'm saying in your body. You might not know it in the language that I use, but you already know it. And you don't actually need me to say it to you for you to know it. Sometimes we do benefit from confirmation. We do want someone to validate what we already know. Sometimes we feel like we really want someone to reflect back to us that we're not alone in our knowing. And I feel like that's what I'm here for. That's why I'm showing up in this way. I'm not showing up to tell you something that you don't already know. I am here to be a voice of affirmation and validation, to be a companion on your journey who encourages you to trust your embodied wisdom, to trust your intuitive guidance, to trust yourself as your own teacher, and to trust your body as your own teacher now. You're no longer a seeker. Your experience, your being, your living has become your own teacher. And what's interesting about this transition is that you simultaneously know and appreciate being your own channel, and you also likely long for more grounding in a community, more grounding with people who can mirror you, people who can offer you belonging, even at times offer you some friction or tension because they are showing up with different modes of embodiment and expression of wisdom. You want to know that the way that you're moving along your path is held and supported in relational integrity. And this is all a part of the process. You knowing what you know through your own knowing, and your longing for accompaniment as you now move with this knowledge, as you now open to deeper receptivity. You also know that you're in the midst of emerging into a new role, of living as an expression of what you know in your own vessel and transmitting and creating from that place. You're probably someone who is really skilled and experienced at holding relational integrity for others, at witnessing and reflecting others back to themselves along their journey. And now you feel this deeper call to receive that same quality from others. And what's coming through for me about this is that now that you're no longer seeking, now that you're no longer grasping for teachers outside of yourself, you're actually open to receive peers. You're open to co-creators. You're available for people who are operating where you're operating, who are ready to not only meet you, not only see and understand you, but also build with you where you are. And the energy of this moment is very potent when it comes to this kind of peer companionship taking on material form. The ways in which you are being called to trust who you are, what you know, what and how you receive, and to live and to create from that place, all of this is the very frequency that draws your co-creative peers toward you. And these are people who might not share exactly the same lineages as you, or the same root teachers, or the same vocabulary even when it comes to spirit and healing and liberation. But they're people who are where you are, who are in the same waters at the same level of depth and receptivity and self-trust, even if they have arrived there from different tributaries. And as you're willing to be where you are, who you are, trusting and receiving what you are here to transmit, your aligned people are now ready to find you. One other aspect of this that feels very important to name: if you are resonating with this message, it's likely that you have started to notice that the earth, the land itself, the elements, the more than human relatives with whom we coexist, that these have become your most consistent peers in this transition phase. You have felt the land meeting you with this quality of recognition that you desire. You've experienced genuine learning encounters and companionship here. And this doesn't make your desire for human companionship any less real or necessary, but it is a marker that you are learning how to be met. It's a sign that this quality is already here inside of you, and the human peers that are coming into your life are people who will share this same relationship with the more than human world. People for whom the land as both peer and teacher is active and alive. This might sound strange to some people, but if you are here vibing with me, I trust that you will understand what I mean when I say this. Lately, I have felt like the earth, the land itself, is the love of my life. Of course, I desire this depth of connection and companionship and co-creation with other humans, but the land feels like my deepest and sweetest relationship. And so much of what I know that I'm being called to transmit through my specific way of channeling is an attempt to translate this love, to remind us of what our bodies already know, what colonization and capitalism and a false, hierarchical, violent reality tried so hard to force us to forget. That the earth is not a resource or a backdrop or a set piece in front of which you and I play out our human lives. The earth is our beloved, and the earth wants us to fall back in love with each other again now. And I don't have any professional background or training in any field related to nature or ecology. I am just an amateur. And that word amateur is coming through for me, I think, because we are meant to remember the Latin root word, amare, to love. I am just an amateur. I am just a lover. I am a lover of this land who is allowing the remembrance of and the return to that love to transform me. As I remember that the body that I inhabit and that I have remembered how to love also is not separate from this earth, is not separate from all other beings existing here. And what I'm sharing with you now about my experience of being witnessed and held and loved by the land, it's here to reflect you back to you. You are no longer a seeker, but we are amateurs when it comes to remembering how to love and be loved by this earth. To love and be loved by each other, by all beings, by spirit. By the land and each other and all beings as spirit. This morning, when I stepped out onto my patio to greet the land like I do every morning, I heard a voice, I heard a message telling me to trust change. To trust what I know in my body about what's changing, even if I don't know where that change will take me. And right as I received this message, I heard an owl hooting in the daytime. And I have never seen or heard an owl here in this location ever, but there it was. The land sending this messenger that marks transitions. This animal archetype that navigates in the dark with something more than ordinary sight. To hear an owl in the daytime is pretty wild. They don't usually make themselves known like that, and for it to arrive in that moment, it was the land letting me know that we were in dialogue, that we're witnessing and mirroring each other, and that the message that I received to trust change and the hooting owl in the distance are all a part of the same relational movement of body, earth, and spirit, of land as beloved, of body as home, of spirit as inseparable from earth. And we're being called to live inside of this relationship more fully. There's no coming home to ourselves without coming home to the land. There's no remembering ourselves as spirit without remembering ourselves as the land. The love that the land is calling us back to is real love. The relational knowing and being known. The mutual reciprocity and accountability. The trust and the movement through the changes of seasons and cycles. You have arrived at this relationship within yourself now, finally. After all of your seeking, after all that you've learned and unlearned with the support of every teacher and healer and creator that you've encountered on your path, and you don't need anyone. Another teacher, a new collaborator, to complete anything inside of you, because you are now opening to being witnessed by both human and more than human loving relationships as a material expression of what is already whole inside of you. And your living in love with the land is the next phase of the physical reflection of this internal relationship. And the paradox of this is that as a necessary part of this phase, it requires people. It requires partnerships and companions. Doing embodied, liberatory relationships in this way, in a way that is horizontal rather than vertical, in a mutual co-creative container rather than a teacher-student dynamic, this is the energy of this new season. And as you trust what you know in your body, as you trust your relationship with the land, you are also being called to trust that you're not here to create what you're here to create alone. Trust the winds of change of this season. Trust the people that these winds blow into your life as a part of this change. Trust what you know about who is on your relational horizon, even if you can't see them yet. And trust the land to hold you and them and what you create through it all. I hope that this message felt supportive for you. It's not always the easiest thing for me to articulate this in language because it really is just a felt sense in my body, but I trust that the way that the words come through for me connects with you in a way that you can receive. And if nothing else, just trust that you know what you know. I'm here to confirm that. But you don't actually need me to do that for you because here you are now at this stage on your path when you already know that. And you can just receive the confirmation as a little signpost along the way. A little reminder that you're right where you're meant to be. And if nothing else, go outside, touch the land, and allow the land to love you and hold you through this change. I love you, and we'll talk soon.